Witnessing mommy kiss Santa Claus may leave any child feeling slightly uneasy. But what about witnessing your father straight up shank someone, all in the jolly name of Santa? What was supposed to be a fun outing full of Christmas cheer turned into a deadly crime scene witnessed by a young Terrence Howard and the rest of his fathers, Tyrone Howard and Jack Fitzpatrick's, the man of the hour or 12 minutes, children. Terrence may have a solid 30-plus years in the business playing the role of fictional characters, but a disturbing past played an even bigger role in his life, perhaps bigger than anything he's ever starred in. As if Terrence Howard's life and his views regarding the mathematical secrets of the universe couldn't get any more bizarre, we find out that he was a main witness in someone's murder back in the groovy baby era of the 70s. I mean, I guess it isn't the most bizarre news to come out of that decade. Taking place at a now defunct department store, what was supposed to have been an eventful evening filled with non-stop laughs, jolly, and joy turned into a messy bloodbath that later be deemed as the Santa line slang. Published in the New York Times newspaper for all of Cleveland, Ohio to see. It wouldn't be till decades down the line that we discover that the man behind the murder was no other than Tyrone Howard, father of the Lucious Lyon, Terrence Howard. I'm sure you're already aware of who Terrence Howard is, but for the uncultured folks in the back, all jokes of course, when he isn't working on his struggle rap career by subjecting low self-esteem prostitutes to do something strange for a piece of change, he's overseeing his music royal family, perfecting the role of Lucious Lyon in the Fox hit show Empire. Taking it all the way back to the year 1971, Tyrone Howard was just 21 years of age when his life got turned upside down, accompanying his then pregnant wife Anita and their 3 sons, one being Terrence Howard, on a Tuesday night quest to see Santa Claus at a Higbee's department store in Cleveland's Public Square on December 21st. A long line to meet the obese man of the moment, old St. Nick had formulated, and instead of having his whole family wait, he'd suggest his wife, Terrence's mother, to rest her feet somewhere outside of the waiting area. Taking her youngest boy, Anita scoured the area before finding a resting place while her husband and other 2 sons secured their spot in line. Slowly but surely, Santa's deep belly laughs and ho-ho-hos would become more distinct as the line moved along, prompting Tyrone to wave his family back over. As Anita and their son were squeezing through, attempting to get back beside their husband and father, a man, Jack E. Fitzpatrick, assumed the leap was a sly attempt to cut the line. More specifically, cut in front of him and his family of 3 children, while his pregnant wife Mary shot with their eldest daughter. Words were exchanged, one thing led to another, and before anyone knew it, a huge brawl unfolded right then and there. Terrence, along with his siblings and mother, were helpless as Tyrone was pinned against a wall. A knee straight to his groin had been the final nail in the coffin before Tyrone grabbed a sharp object, stabbing Jack Fitzpatrick. Needless to say, every kid in that department store was traumatized, including Terrence, whose jacket was now stained with a red gooey substance. Gathering the kids, the Howards would eventually flee the scene, staying low-key at Tyrone's mother's residence before Tyrone, devoured in guilt, turned himself into police just a few short hours later. Jack Fitzpatrick, on the other hand, had been taken to a nearby hospital where he'd succumbed to his injuries. Tyrone Howard would be hit with a second-degree manslaughter charge, resulting in an 11-month prison stay. The night of December 21st of 1971 at Higbee's department store in Cleveland, Ohio was wild, and not in a good way. But the witness accounts of the incident were just as wild and outright strange, since no one seems to come to an agreement on what really happened. According to some, Jack Fitzpatrick's use of racial slurs resulted in the altercation, which would be the story most stuck with. However, others claim to have heard no such language uttered by Mr. Fitzpatrick. His usage of racial epithets had later been denied by Terrence's mother, who testified that although Jack Fitzpatrick didn't use any slurs, he did say something along the lines of, "Doing things like this has set your race back 5 years. to which Tyrone reacted and began cursing at Jack, leading to the fight that cost Jack his life. Now widowed wife Mary also testified that a security guard had been the one to separate her husband and Anita's, but Tyrone Howard escalated the situation by pulling out a knife from his jacket and lunging at Fitzpatrick. According to other witnesses and Tyrone himself, "She's lying, Your Honor." While Tyrone was pinned against the wall, now bleeding from his groin, a woman slyly handed him a nail file which he'd used to stab Jack. The woman never came forward, nor was the nail file or the knife in question ever recovered from the scene. Race was far away from the court and jury room, and after a long-awaited deliberation, Tyrone Howard was convicted of manslaughter and given a 1 to 25-year sentence, but was let go early after just 11 months for good behavior. Prior to this incident, Tyrone had no previous arrest records. Unfortunately, he and his wife would soon get a divorce shortly after his release. Race may not have been a contributing factor, but once Terrence Howard established himself as one of America's favorite actors, promoting his 2005 movie Crash on the Oprah Winfrey Show, he spoke about the time his father took someone out in a line to meet Santa. This had also been the first time Terrence had publicly spoke on the incident. During a cast discussion about racism in U.S. history, Terrence gave his account of the Santa line slaying and insisted on it being racially motivated. Let Terrence tell it, when he, his siblings, and his mother rejoined the line, Jack Fitzpatrick assumed Tyrone, whose complexion is lighter than the rest of his fam, according to Terrence, spoiler alert, it's not, was a Caucasian male, and had asked Tyrone why he allowed the N-words to cut him. After explaining that those N-words were in fact his family, Fitzpatrick then grabbed Tyrone by the throat and pinned him against a wall. We've already established that no racial slurs were said, so it should come to no surprise that Terrence's memory of this incident had been debunked. You're probably surprised, however, that it had been his own father, Tyrone himself, to debunk his son's recollection. During an interview with the Cleveland newspaper The Plain Dealer, he buckles down on the fact that the situation was not racially charged. It wasn't anything racial that went down. It was two men standing there, both of us acting like fools, instead of one of us taking the man's role and walking away. After his wife and sons joined him, Jack Fitzpatrick accused Tyrone of allowing them to skip ahead without realizing that it was Tyrone's family. That part of Terrence's account was true. After basically telling Jack Fitzpatrick, "Play with your own kids, not with mine," Jack clapped back with, "That's a cheap trick, buddy," and before anyone could react, all hell broke loose. Once it was evident Jack was in desperate need of help after the stabbing, Tyrone then knelt down and attempted to apply pressure on his wounds. Some advised Tyrone to flee, and he obliged out of pure fear. The Fitzpatricks have also come out with their own recollections, being pretty adamant that the Howards cut in line numerous times before Jack spoke up. Jack's daughter, Peggy, who'd only been 9 at the time, gave the insight of her father being a seminarian, a student who studies at a school of the Roman Catholic Church, whose goal is to form Christian men to be disciples of Christ in order to reach priesthood. In the same interview, she'd also expressed admiration for Terrence overcoming his childhood traumas to become the man he is today. Did I mention that Terrence had only been 2 years old at the time? Whether his memory was foggy due to his youth, or he'd yearned for an Oprah sob story for publicity like his father Tyrone stated, Terrence Howard sure did have a rather interesting upbringing, to say the least. Did you know about the Santa line slaying? Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.